So here we go. We are set for game number 4 of Team Kessel versus Team Spinal Tap in the Chobo Team League. And spawning up here in the upper left-hand corner of the map, GSL Ohana, or ESV Ohana. Wow. ESV Ohana is playing random, spawning as Terran. He's playing for Team Kessel. It is TwT. And spawning across from him in the pink color, apparently not actually playing Zerg. I'll fix that in just a second. But he is playing Terran. He's in the pink color. Don't let that fool you. He's playing for Spinal Tap. It is Gloomzy. So, let me just fix that. There we go. So this is a platinum level game, which means that we'll keep increasing the skill level a little bit. Team Kessel up 2-1, and we'll see if TwT can extend that lead for his team. Again, playing against a random player, so Gloomzy is going to be a little bit more cautious with this opening. He has to make sure that he can go from whatever opening he does into something more race-specific and get those units that he doesn't need. So instead of being able to really plan out his opening and do something a little bit more risky, he's going to have to really sit back and just do something solid and safe until he finds out what race the opponent is. It doesn't look like TwT is going to try and use that to his advantage. Instead, he's going to go for a quick scout. So now we should see what everybody knows. It's a Terran versus Terran. And this is actually really early scout. A depot scout is a little bit rare. But TwT getting the information that he needs. He's throwing down his barracks. He's got an early gas geyser as well. So we'll see. This might be a Reaper opening. It could be a Banshee opening. Just this SCV looks like he wanted to put down a gas geyser, but didn't quite. And the harassment at the barracks doing a little bit of damage to both of our SCV guns. But TwT does get in. He spots no gas geysers taken so far by Gloomzy, and indeed he's got 400 minerals, so that command should go down very quickly. So it'll be a 1-Rax gasless expand for our pink player for Team Spinal Tap. And there it is. TwT, meanwhile, going for a tech build as his factory's thrown down. He's still only got 1 gas geyser, and that's pretty interesting to me. It looks like he may go straight up to Banshees. He may stay a little bit lower tech and just get quick tanks and do an early push, but he will have to put on a little bit of pressure onto his opponent. Otherwise, he'll start falling pretty far behind economically. See this Marine actually moving around the side. He's checking for proxy buildings. Maybe a little bit cautious after just seeing the 1 barracks in his opponent's base. But Gloomzy playing very standard. He's going to get that bunker up at his wall in now after seeing that his opponent is teching. He sees the double gas. Very valuable scouting information, that SCV. A hero to his people despite his death, relaying back his information. But there is the starport, so I think this will be a Banshee opening from TwT. There's got to be a shorter way to say TwT. W, just such a long, awkward letter. It looks kind of like a face. I mean, I don't know. TwT is what we're going to have to stick with, though. Orbital command on the way from Gloomzy at his neutral. He's following up the 2nd barracks. He's got his double gas done as well. I'm afraid he's a little low on production currently. Only 2 barracks so far. He's got more than enough minerals to throw down another barracks or 2. And he's not even really mining gas. He's going to go 3 finally into each assembly, or each refinery, excuse me. But he's really low on production. And we actually see TwT going for a little bit of a fake out. His opponent really expecting Banshees, and he's probably hoping that his opponent is throwing down the engineering bay and getting a whole lot of missile turrets around. But that's not the case. And TwT going for a Raven. Raven's very, very useful, especially against a player who may be doing bio, as the point defense drones from the Raven stop Marauder shots. I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time talking today. So I'm not sure. There's actually a clutch scan by Gloomzy, and he sees the Raven right away, and he should know now that there's no Banshee incoming. He could cancel this engineering bay, but this basically means to him that he doesn't need to get missile turrets, and that's really, really valuable to him. So kind of a clutch scan, and we see TWT taking the northern watchtower with his Marine Force and his Raven. First siege tank is out, and we see siege mode about a quarter of the way done, and this is going to be a nice early timing for TWT. And his opponent is stuck on low tech. He got his expansion first, and he's teching slower, and it looks like he won't have a whole lot in the way of defense. He'll have only Marines, except push actually headed out. There it goes. Now the push headed out from TWT. Perhaps waiting for a couple more Marines. But this is a pretty deadly looking push. He can start sieging up, and these are uncombat shield, unstim Marines, and they're only Marines. And against siege tank, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to defend. He needs marauders, he needs tanks, he needs something like that. We see the first tank on the way, but his siege mode is way behind his opponents, and TWT may be able to do quite a bit of damage before anything happens. This Viking here giving him vision to the high ground, and now he'll start shelling this bunker at the front. He can't quite push up and just start killing that, so SCV is going to be pulled to try and start repairing that by Gloomzy. Raven now circling. He does have more than enough for point defense drone. He's almost got enough, or he may almost have enough for point defense drone and an auto turret, and that's a little bit of costly micro there. He can't afford to lose this Viking. That's really his advantage right now, is that he has this air vision, he has his siege mode before his opponent, and it looks like Gloomzy will be able to defend pretty nicely. TWT looking like he wants to push up here. He can't do too much. These SCV is just going to out-repair his siege tanks on the bunker. Now there's a second siege tank down at the bottom of the ramp. It looks like he's trying to bait a couple of these Marines out, but that's not quite going to work, and the siege continues. Back behind this, TWT has taken the watchtower, or not the watchtower, he has taken an expansion, so this isn't all-in by any means. He does manage to get rid of that bunker. Marines going to come out after him, and they do pick off a siege tank. A couple of them do lose their lives in the process, but this campaign not going to work at all. Siege tank up on the high ground basically shuts everything down, and Gloomzy with a really nice defense there. He's a little bit supply locked after this, so we can't take gigantic advantage of this, but as we see Gloomzy in a nice spot, up 12 SCVs, which means he does have a little bit smaller of an army, but that's not a huge difference in TVT. The tech is there for both players. Now there's a Banshee out from TWT, and it looks like he wants to continue this pressure. He's throwing down 2 more barracks back behind this, and I'm really curious to see when he wants to push again. But this does indicate that he does want to put on more pressure. Third command center on the way from Gloomzy, hopefully not being lulled into a false sense of security by his opponent backing off. He's taking his third and fourth gas laser, and we see both players on basically the same amount of production. Gloomzy going to throw down 3 barracks back behind this, so he'll be up to 6 barracks, and soon his production will just skyrocket over TWT's unless he's careful about this. We look now, 42 SCVs to 33. That's a pretty big advantage to our Spinal Tap player. Second starport on the way from TWT. That's really curious. He really wants to keep that air advantage, which is very key in this matchup. You see, he's got control over the middle of the map right now, and there's no medevacs out for either player, so drop's not an option currently. I'd love to see a reactor thrown down on the starport, of course, by Gloomzy. There's no reason really not to. He's getting a missile turret up at the front of this base. I'm not sure if he if he has scanned recently. It doesn't look like it, but he seems really wary of a Banshee follow-up. Random players have been known to be a little bit cheesier on the ladder, so that might be what he's preparing for. And again, in TVT, it's good practice just to get a couple of missile turrets around, just to try and prevent drops. But now Gloomzy moving down into his third base area, looking to take that. We'll head into a nice macro TVT. It is going to be mostly Marine tank against Marine tank. Those are Vikings and not dropships at all. Okay. Scan coming down in the middle of the map. I'm not sure what this is hoping to accomplish from either player. But Gloomzy going to move out. He's not checking this watchtower, so TWT knows where his opponent's army is right now, and he's going to have to pull back with all of his forces. How many siege tanks does he have? It looks like only the 1 right now. The Unistab is convinced he has 4. I'm not sure where they are. There's 3 of them. There's the 4th. Okay. So we have found them all. But Gloomzy going to move out. He's got a Marine Tank Medevac force. He's only got one Medevac, which might come into play. He does have Stimpack. TWT has no Stimpack. That's a pretty key little advantage for Gloomzy. TWT does have the superior tank count at 4 or 5. This is a nice looking siege line. Taking a couple of quick volleys there is Gloomzy, and he'll just back up. So a little bit of pressure, though, does help him secure that third base and feel very confident about it. And he can saturate that. He knows he has the economic advantage now, I'm pretty sure. It looks like he has not turned down any more scans, actually. So look at TWT. He doesn't quite see all the production in his opponent's base, but not too important. And we see Gloomzy, switching into more bio. He's getting Marauders in with his composition. And this is one that I really like. If you're going to go... Marine Tank does tend to be more cost efficient, but if you can't spend all your gas, throwing in some Marauders is always good, as that'll give you a little bit more power to break your opponent's tank lines. And Marine Tank versus Marine Tank is a really ugly looking game. We see TWT is actually taking the gases at his expansion without ever taking expansion. I don't see... There's actually a command center finally building back in the main. He's getting his own armory. And if you look, upgrades +1/+1 on the way for both players. +2 on the way for Gloomzy. So he's a little bit ahead in the upgrades, and his tanks will be 1-0 before his opponent. And it looks like he may want to try to hit a timing as a couple of upgrades do finish. But both players just constantly taking the middle of the map, seeing where their opponent is, and it's really well scouted game so far, and really well played by both players. Gloomzy has a pretty big advantage. If you look, 62 SCVs to 56. In a mirror matchup, every little advantage that you have matters. If you look, army supply pretty significantly in favor of Gloomzy. This is a really weird choke point, especially if you get caught in it. And it looks like this will be the focal point kind of our next fight. Gloomzy moving around the watchtower. We see cloaked Banshees have cloaked for some reason for TWT, and he may go for a little bit of harassment here. Now the army has been found by these Vikings, and there's this Stim in. He'll be able to actually take out those Vikings, and now the air advantage belongs to Gloomzy. There's a decent siege up, and he's going to come in and take the third base down. But all these siege tanks in a really vulnerable position. It doesn't look like TWT is aware of that. He's setting up his own siege line, and this is a really weird position to be in TvT. Gloomzy has essentially cut off the third base area and has cut off the route to the natural for TWT. Now these Banshees getting in, cloaked Banshees. Scan will pick off one, won't quite get the other. He will get the Raven, though. That's also pretty key. He does get the Raven. Really nicely done. Gloomzy in a really nice spot. 197 supply to 117. And TWT now baiting units into a siege tank fire. He's really... Still, this is a really weird position to be in for both players. Gloomzy has lost all of his medevacs, though, as TWT bought in his Viking reinforcements. There's a stim up. He's going to try and take down one siege tank, but instead he just loses a lot of his bio. There's not a whole lot of forces left here for Gloomzy. And he's kind of cut off from his reinforcements. There's no real reinforcement path for his bio units to walk in. So both players actually cut off from significant places. Another Raven is out for TWT, and it looks like he wants to drop an auto turret down, maybe right on top of these tanks, and that's really nicely done as well. And he'll actually take out one of his opponent's tanks in the process. Raven getting a little ahead of itself, and there's a point defense drone being put down. I don't think there's any units that will actually block here, but Gloomzy can now has a safe retreat path, has a safe reinforcement path if that's what he wants to do, but he will just back off now. 180 supply to 140. Big economic advantage now to Gloomzy. But TWT still in this. If we look at the units tab, we see he's got, actually we're even on siege tanks, which is an important count to have. Gloomzy ahead in basically every other count though. And there's still no medevacs for TWT. And while he has air advantage, and that's very important, any damage done to his Marines is permanent, which means that his opponent's siege tanks are going to be extremely cost efficient. Resources lost right now, a little bit in favor of Gloomzy, but he has the economic advantage too. And now max out Gloomzy versus a 151 by TWT. But our purple player for Team Kessel is going to go for the siege. He's dropping down a 4th command center, going for the double again. And now we do have a siege up. The unit's moving down the ramp now for Gloomzy. There's the big stim in, and a lot of these units dying very quickly. There's finally the siege from Gloomzy, and he'll take out all of his opponent's bio. and we'll sit back in a really weird spot here. This is actually going very well for TWT as he's forced his way through these Vikings now taking air advantage, and Gloomzy getting caught there. He was not able to siege his tanks on time. These Vikings will actually take down the last siege tank. So Gloomzy, despite having a nice economic advantage, now TWT has the army advantage. He'll move in. He'll start taking down a couple of these production buildings, and the third base is gone. So again, as I was saying with that last fight, Gloomzy was not sieged at all, and that really cost him in that battle. He had the bigger army, but he did not have a big enough army that he could just run in and take on his opponent's siege tanks. And now TWT sieging up in between the second and third. He's doing splash damage to his own tanks, which is a little dangerous because of these SCVs, but he's taking them all down. These Vikings now out for Gloomzy give him the air advantage. He's only got one siege tank to make advantage of this against his opponent's 5. There's still one left on the ground. But TWT now moving into the natural. Can he take down this siege tank? It does look like he'll be able to. And now SCV's forcing to be pulled by Gloomzy. He's taking a lot of them down. If we look, 33, now 35 workers killed. There's even a couple of siege tanks back behind this. And Gloomzy in a really tough spot. Now even a scan of the high ground, TWT moving in. He'll start camping his opponent's production. And now he's cut off reinforcement onto the natural. So he'll lose his natural expansion. SCV's being pulled, trying to take out a couple more of these tanks. But Gloomzy falling very far behind. It looks like these SCVs are actually going to manage to take care of tanks, but more bio units reinforcing. Back at the top of the ramp, there's not too much more. Oh, he's got so many bio units back in his main. The rally point's not the best here from Gloomzy. I'm not sure he realizes the size of the army that he still has. That's where the rest of the army is by Gloomzy, and that's a big mistake. He may still have enough to break his opponent here. He finally has found all of his bio units. If we look, 3-2 upgraded versus 2-2, so he has a little bit of an advantage there. In comes the stim as he tries to move down the ramp. This is a gigantic bio army, but he's getting choked out now. These couple of siege tanks doing damage. Now finally Stim stutter stepping down the ramp, and he takes care of his opponent's army, but trails now by 23 supply. Workers killed, 61 workers killed by TWT, only 15 so far by Gloomzy. He's got the army advantage, I believe, right now. If we look, 62 supply to 42. Workers now, 62 to 10. And Gloomzy needs to try and make something happen, but he doesn't even have any medevacs now. And, oh my goodness. So not only was the engagement bad down the ramp, that army that was just sitting here by these 3 barracks would have been more than enough to break that. And just little mistakes compounding on themselves for Gloomzy. Now TWT in a better position. He's got a gigantic siege tank advantage, and he's basically forced his opponent onto pure bio. Pure bio not the greatest against Marine tank, just because those Marines serve as a really nice buffer, and Marauders actually don't trade that well against Marines. Gloomzy is going to move out here, and he really needs to make something happen. There's a couple more reinforcements coming in here. Bad rally point, it looks like, by TWT. And there's actually, he's wasting a huge stim on just those 4 units. The main orbital command now floating down to the 3rd, so if we actually look, there's no mining going on right now by Gloomzy. And indeed, he's only got 10 SCVs. He needs to start remaking those. He'll have enough for 4 mules, but he needs this army right here to do all the damage in the world. He needs to make it get back into this game. TWT still has, this is a nice siege up position. He doesn't have the buffer units for these tanks, so they're a little bit exposed. And there's a big stim in. Gloomzy trying to take them down. It looks like there just were enough Marines here. Stimming up now, running in. He's trying to take down this Thor. He hits that. He'll get a couple more of these siege tanks, but now down to 49 supply. Still has the army advantage. He's forcing his opponent back. He needs to go in and take out the 3rd. He needs to take out like 50 SCVs to try and equalize this game. And there comes a Banshee down through the middle of the map. There's no units back, and really no production available to Gloomzy. He will take out these factories in the middle of the map, but in come 3 Thors and a couple Marauders. TWT will be able to break this army of Gloomzy, and now it's just a matter of time. TWT with a gigantic lead, 106 supply to 34. There's 1 siege tank left. I believe that's his entire army if I look at the units tab. Okay, there's a little bit more available to him than that, but not too much more. A couple of units or the Banshee is actually taken down. That was the Banshee, without getting too many kills. But Gloomzy in a very tough spot. He's got basically no mining. Those mules helping out quite a bit if we look at the income tab. Yeah, he's almost even in terms of minerals, but he doesn't have gas income right now. So he's really going to try to stick on this Marine Marauder. He has to hope he can hold the next attack, but I don't think it'll be possible. TwT now with 4 Thors on the field. He's got 2 siege tanks. There's bio units just streaming across the map. He's even got a pretty decent bank right now, taking a 5th base back behind this. And now he's moving in. In comes the little bit engagement. Thors 2-0 upgraded, so they're tearing through these units. But Marauders are pretty good, as it turns out, especially with medevac support. Again, TwT has not made a medevac in this game, and I think that's really what keeping Gloomzy in this. He will finally clean up that army and be forced to retreat. There's a couple more Marines. He'll take out that siege tank, though, and TwT forced to retreat. So he's got a gigantic advantage. He just can't put away his opponent. He's actually expanding down here to his opponent's 4th base location. These Marines should go and clean that up. Now it has been spotted by this Viking, and he'll actually just let that command center die. He doesn't need to cancel that. And it is canceled. But now more and more Thors being rallied into the middle of the map by TwT. He's getting bio units. He's actually pulling SCVs. They are on auto repair to try and help out these Thors. And he really wants to end the game now. I'm hoping that he's not getting just over eager with this. Gloomzy does have a couple units. This Thor on a suicide mission into his opponent's base. A couple Marauders to get out. He sims up. These medevacs are the heroes of the game right now for Gloomzy, and he's actually forcing his opponent back. He kills another Thor. If you look at the resources lost tab, oof. Then come the units now from TwT. There's even Hellions with this to try and deal with some of these Marines. And he's expanding now over here to his opponent's other 4th base location. Gloomzy getting his army together. He's got quite a few bio units, but pure bio against almost a mech composition now. There's the stim in from both players. He does target down that siege tank very easily, but Gloomzy now out of units and out of luck. 110 supply lead now for TwT, and there's 4 Thors left alive, as well as a couple Marauders and Hellions. And this is all of Gloomzy's mining. He's pulling all of his SCVs. Those will be taken down. And that looks to be it now. Finally, TwT taking down his opponent's barracks, and he'll move up into the natural where the rest of the unit is. Oh, there were 2, excuse me. There's 1 Marauder trying to be a hero. It's not going to happen, though. And that'll be it for Gloomzy. 152 supply to 7, and the reinforcements headed across the map for TwT. There's the GG. And that's all for game number 4. Team Kessel takes a 3-1 lead and has a chance to close out the series in the next game. It'll be a Silver League game, set number 5 of CTL. Thank you for watching. My name is Meristematic. We'll be right back with game number 5 between